and welcome to a brand new video. Today we have a new mysterious case and it's a very special one. For precisely last Thursday, the 20-year death anniversary of this person was commemorated, and I filmed it at the same time without knowing. It was so perfect. As you saw by the title, we'll be talking about the case of Diana of Wales, or Lady D, which many of you wanted to see. But anyway, I think you want to hear everything about this new case, and I'm very excited for you to get to know it, so let's begin. The mysterious case of Diana of Wales. Diana of Wales, whose real name was Diana Frances Spencer, was born on July 1st, 1961, in Sandringham, England. She was the youngest daughter from the matrimony between John Spencer, known as the 8th Earl Spencer, and his wife Frances Ruth Roach. It is said that during her childhood, Diana was a girl that didn't do well in school. She went through several schools, among them Sealfield Private School in Kings Lynn, Riddleswood Hall School, and Westheath Girls' School. By the year of 1977, when she was 16 years old, she left this last school and enrolled in the Institut Alpin Wiedemannet. It is said that around that time was when Diana and Charles meet, for it seemed like Charles was having a small romantic affair with her sister. Obviously, Diana and Charles became really good friends, and from then, things started to progress until that turned into a relationship. When she was 17 years old, she moved to London and lived in her own apartment until the year of 1981, which was when she got married to Prince Charles. From that moment on, obviously, Diana became Her Royal Highness Princess Diana of Wales. From that first moment, she became a truly renowned and truly respected person by all society. This because she did many humanitarian work and she also had a lot of charisma, which was very nice for everybody. This, and given the press interest on her, made her become an icon for the 90s pop culture. After some time, they finally had both of their children, Prince William and Prince Harry. Because all of that charisma and that angel that Diana had, she was very unusual when it came to raising her children. It seemed that she raised them focusing a lot on noble and humanitarian values, and she tried for them to have a normal life despite being born as royals. It is said that she took them to fast food restaurants, she took them to the amusement parks everybody was going to, and she also brought them with her to do humanitarian work to different places. That way, they could understand that they were unprivileged people who also deserve a good quality of life. However, by the end of the 80s, his marriage with Charles started to crumble, and in the beginning of the 90s, they distanced even further. In the year of 1995, Diana gave an interview to the BBC channel in which she gave some strong declarations, for she told that she suffered from bulimia and she also cut herself. Besides, she told that she was constantly harassed by the paparazzi and the press. She also spoke about her husband's infidelity and about how he had committed adultery with another person while they're still married.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
By August 28th of the year 1996, the divorce was finally signed by the couple. It is said that around the time that they got divorced, Diana decided to turn her life around, so she completely dedicated herself to the charity work. She also lent her image to several humanitarian organizations. Back then, she not only became a humanitarian figure, but also a fashion icon, where everybody wanted to be like her, to look like her, to wear her hairstyles, her clothes, among many other things. However, after all this, her happiness didn't last long. For the year of 1997, exactly on August 31st, she died in a tragic car accident. The accident happened in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, France. However, she wasn't the only one who died, but also her driver, Henry Paul, and the person who was her boyfriend at that time, Dodi Al-Fayed. The only one who survived this crash was her bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones. Obviously, because she wasn't a part of the royalty anymore, the royal family didn't want to host a funeral in their home or to involve themselves in any way. However, because the people loved her so much, they practically demanded from the royal family, so they hosted a funeral. As part of her funeral, her great friend Elton John composed one of the most famous and successful songs of all time, called Candle in the Wind, which was a tribute to the princess.
The candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in.
However, obviously Elton declared that he would never sing that song again, unless the prince's son asked it. After the princess died in the year of 1999, a judge ruled the cause of her death as accidental. For her driver, Henry Paul was driving very fast and in an inebriated state. Besides, he lost control of the car because of how fast they were going to avoid the paparazzi. However, here's when we're going to start talking about this probably not being what truly happened to her. There are many theories about the Princess of Wales' death, so I'm going to tell you about several theories that had been around for this past 20 years after her passing. At first, the guilt was the paparazzis. As you know, or maybe you don't know, she was in a Mercedes-Benz car going about the speed limit with these three men, where the paparazzi were chasing them given the influence the princess had and the new romance she had with this man, but we will talk about him later. Obviously, after her death, all the guilt was put in the paparazzi, who were also arrested after the accident happened, and the people shunned them completely, calling them harassers, demented, cowards, murderers, and even more. Besides, it is sad that after the accident, instead of helping the princess, the only thing they did was keep taking pictures and more pictures of the tragical crash. But that's one of the theories about her death. The second theory is about her driver, Henry Paul. As I've told you, in the end, the judge of the case ruled that it was his fault, for he was inebriated and had also consumed some antidepressants. However, things changed a little when the people realized that Henry Paul was also carrying a great sum of money in his pockets. Here's when people started speculating a lot, and they began to say that Henry Paul had been hired by the British intelligence service to murder the princess. However, what doesn't fit here is that if he was being hired by the agency to murder her, why did he also die? It could be that he accidentally did something that led to his death, or this theory simply isn't true and he just died accidentally. But the question about where he got all that money he had in his pockets remain. The third theory points at the car itself and how could that have had so much to do to the princess' death. There was a documentary called Diana's Death, An Incredible Revelation. Basically, it's an investigation about how the car was probably very important in her death, and there were some very interesting conclusions. It is said that everything started in 1994 with this car's first owner called Eric Busquet. It is said that this man bought the car and that just 3 months after he bought it, it was stolen. It is said that the thief tried to flee taking a highway at maximum speed and he would suffer a serious accident, leaving the car as almost total loss. However, despite everything, the owner, Eric, decided to take back the car and repair it. Several years passed after that, and the limousine company Etoile Limousines bought this car for $40,000. Then, the Ritz Hotel hired this limousine to take the Princess Diana to her destination the day they die. After that, people talked to some of the hotel staff, and they say the car was somewhat strange and also a little unsafe, that it was hard to control and that it had failures when it went over 70 kilometers per hour. Besides, out of the 4 who were in the car, just one was wearing the seatbelt and was the person who survived. There's still no explanation of why the other passengers weren't wearing the seatbelt. It is said that when people arrived at the scene, they realized the seatbelts weren't working. Regarding a fourth theory, we already talked about the seatbelts themselves, and here's when we link the father of the man Diana was dating, called Mohammed Al-Fayed. He told the Daily Express that he was sure that Diana and her son hadn't had an accident but were murdered. As I've told you, Diana and her boyfriend weren't wearing their seatbelts, and that started raising a lot of suspicions among the people. For they say that Diana had always been a very careful person and that she always wore her seatbelt. So that's why they started to think that someone probably sabotaged the car seatbelts for them not to wear them, and when the accident happened, they would die faster. It is said that probably the chief of the MI6, which is the British Intelligence Secret Services, manipulated them to cause that. And here's when the fifth theory appears, which is the theory about England's Secret Service. They're the ones that have the strongest theory about them probably being responsible of the princess' death. It is said that the British service obviously saw Diana as a great threat for the throne and therefore to the state stability itself. It is said that for many years the MI6 spied the princess through calls and even through cameras in her residence, and many other things. It is said that apparently the only survivor, who was the bodyguard, was in constant contact with the MI6 members. Besides, the fact that he survived the accident spoke volumes about him being involved in planning part of the accident with the Secret Service. People also say that the paparazzi weren't really paparazzi, but also members of the Secret Service. There are many theories truly, and let's say that it is not a secret that many times these agents from these Secret Services pretend to be other kind of professionals to execute or carry on with the plans they may have. It is said that the motorcyclists and the paparazzi that were in the other cars were agents from the Secret Service, and that with a flash they probably prevented the driver from keeping his eyes on the road. After this light was shone in his eyes, what the driver did was speed to avoid it, and that's when they arranged the apparition of the other car to impact them and create the accident. And here goes our next theory, and it's that probably the Secret Service also planned the approach of the other car for it to be the cause of the accident. There's a very important inconsistency, and is that when they gathered all the evidence of what happened in the accident, they found that the Mercedes had some white paint scratches, like ones that are left on the car after a car crash because of the other's car paint. However, this car was nowhere to be found. They investigated and talked with all the Fiat Uno owners, but they didn't find anything. So that makes us think that everything was obviously planned, but they don't want us to know. The next theory is about the boyfriend she had back then, Dodi Al-Fayed. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Dodi was the son of an Egyptian multimillionaire. Therefore, their religion was the Islamic one. And here's when a supposition about this murder appears, which is that on one hand, it wasn't good for the kingdom for a public figure to be dating a man from another country, another religion. It is said that they were just a few days away from announcing their engagement before all the media, and that the princess was also expecting a child from this man. Let's say that there was a very reliable proof about them about to become engaged. For precisely the day before the accident, Dodi was saw via some security cameras buying a ring in a very important jewelry store. Besides, that particular ring was from a jewelry collection called Tell Me Yes, so it's obvious that he was going to propose and they were going to publicly announce their engagement that day. This engagement would be a complete scandal for the kingdom, not only for the reason I've mentioned before, that the man was from another country and another religion, but for it would be a scandal for him to be the Prince Harry and William's stepfather. Therefore, the royal family probably wasn't able to stand this news, so what they did was to simply end Diana's life for that not to happen. And speaking about the royal family, the next theory is about Queen Elizabeth II, who was probably the mastermind behind the accident. There are many rumors about the Queen not liking the Princess of Wales from the very first moment. It seems like she was very jealous of the princess, for as I've told you, she was a very charismatic person, and people love her even more than they love Charles. This upset her a lot, so she never wanted her as daughter-in-law or as part of her family. More so after there was this scandal for Charles' infidelity to Diana, the Queen just stayed silent, but she did strongly reprimand Diana for the accusations she had made. This was known because many journalists were infiltrated in the palace as servants. Obviously, after the divorce, the Queen was the one who stripped Diana of her princess title, and she also publicly humiliated her by making her return all the jewels that she had been given during the marriage. The other thing, and what further points at the Queen, was after the Princess Diana passing, she didn't want to address the public during the first 5 days. She didn't do it until the Prime Minister Tony Blair urged her via his son Charles to address the people regarding what had happened. However, during all those days, she hadn't shown any state of mourning. It seemed like she wasn't hurt in the slightest by the death of her former daughter-in-law. Princess Charles told her that if she didn't address the people, he would leave the palace with his 2 sons to never see her again. So this threat worked on the Queen, so she finally addressed the people.
No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death.
And lastly, we have the theory that everyone thinks it's true in these cases, and is that basically Diana faked her death. She was absolutely tired of everything. As I've told you, she was constantly harassed by journalists, by paparazzi, by absolutely everyone. And she was already tired of that life, so she faked her death with her boyfriend's help, who was very, very rich, and they managed to plan all of this. And they planned their deaths. Besides, it is said that some days before her death, she told the Daily Mail reporter that she was about to retire from the public life. But in my case, I don't believe it much in this theory. Finally, to end this, I'm going to tell you about some of the inconsistencies that for me are proof that this wasn't just an accident, but that someone truly had an interest in murdering her. Back then, they weren't closed-circuit videos of the highways to know how the accident happened. In 2003, it was said that all the cameras that were on the Mercedes path that night were operating. However, the videos could not be found. The newspaper The Independent say that there were around 14 cameras back then, and that it was very strange that none of them had filmed the moment of the crash. On the other hand, there are the Operation Paget's reports. This was precisely the operation that was in charge of investigating everything regarding the Princess accident. And they found many inconsistencies. This was a file that was being collected and was being written accordingly to the witnesses, testimonies, and what people say they had seen or heard. And some of these testimonies just disappeared. On one hand, it was said that the driver's blood wasn't his but another person's. On the other hand, a French firefighter responded to an emergency several years later. He found a photographer's body with 3 gunshots on the head in the middle of the woods. This photographer had been at the scene the day in which Diana died, and it is even said that this man had possibly been the one who was driving the Fiat Uno that was never showed upon the crime scene. These testimonies and many others are no longer found in this report, and all this is very odd, for they were key to know what happened to the princess. On the other hand, another inconsistency is that the accident happened at around 12:26 a.m. and the ambulance only got to the hospital at 2:06, namely it took almost 2 hours to get from the site of the accident to the hospital. It is said that back then there was a hospital before the hospital where they took the princess, and instead of taking her to the closest one, they took her to the furthest. They also say that they took a really long time extracting her from the car, and that despite that she was still alive in the ambulance. There are people who even say that she didn't die on her own in the ambulance, but that they probably injected her with some chemical so she died on the way. But anyway, this was the Princess Diana case. I know it's a little long. There is a lot of information about this, and that's why I like it so much, for I was able to find so many things regarding this. I don't know what you think, but I believe that the Queen and the Secret Service had a lot to do with it. But you tell me which one you think was truly Princess Diana cause of that. As always, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed this case very much. Don't forget to comment, to leave us suggestions about what other case you like to see. You've requested a lot Michael Jackson's case, so let me know. And if this video reaches 30,000 likes, I will film it. Don't forget to follow me on all my social media. You know I have a billion social media accounts. Besides, I can end up saying hi to you on these videos. Subscribe to this wonderful channel. It helps me a lot to keep making these videos. Activate the notification bell so it lets you know when I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching me. Don't forget to follow your dreams, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!